Ladies and gentlemen, sexy football is back in Leicester. It's finished 3-1 to the Foxes. Forget my awful Dutch accent for once. Luke's happy face is actually a happy face. We have just seen an absolutely brilliant performance. I'm joined here on blue tinted glasses by Andreas, LCFC Duck, and Luke from LCFC Down Under. Please like this stream, subscribe if you haven't already, and also like and subscribe to Luke's content on LCFC Down Under. But let's get all of that out the way and let's get it going on. The Ruud era is here. Guys, what a brilliant match that was. You know what? I'll start with you, Luke. Talk to me. What did you make of Leicester City 3, West Ham United 1?
My turtleneck can't get here soon enough. Everyone in the comments, get your comments in. Let us know. All aboard the Dutch hype train. Let's fucking go. I'm on the front row. That was brilliant. What do you guys think of that? We have a manager now that's now compacted our defense in 2 training sessions and also is proactive with his changes. He is making his changes instantly. He's made tweaks, adjustments after half-time. He switched McAteer over to the left. It was the right move to make, and we'll talk about that further. But it's just nice to see that we don't have an orc in charge. We've got a sexy man rocking a turtleneck that has half a brain.
Andreas, how do you follow that up? Talk to me. What did you make of that?
I am ecstatic, right? This was a game where I hope to just see some slight improvements, even if it was a draw or a loss. But the fact, I saw the willpower here. I saw the will to keep the ball out of our net and get it in their net. We took our chances. We even missed quite a few chances, to be honest, that we could have scored more goals. But like the willingness to make sure they didn't score the goal, the extra miles they ran for each other here, the way they covered for each other here, and many, many individual players proved why they deserve to be at Leicester Football Club and should be starting. Bilal Al-Kanoush, Victor Christensen in particular, the 2 standards here. Connor Cody as well. I have to give shout out to him. Keeping the ball off the line. Many people are saying he shouldn't touch a football again in his life. He certainly has a role to play in the future of Leicester City. I'm ecstatic, man. It feels so good to win again. And I'm buzzing.
I like this. Fill in the blank. Cooper is watching this game at home and saying, put your comments in below. What is he saying there? Well, let's go through things. I'll give you the story of the game before we start going through the players. I think there's so much to talk about all of the players. I think looking at the stats, so I think that West Ham fans may feel slightly aggrieved because looking at the XG, I think it's fair to say they probably should have scored more than the 1 goal they got. That said, I feel that these stats don't say the full story of the game. But, you know, I think this is maybe the one slight concern. I say slight. 31 shots against is something to be said, even though I think we actually did defend quite well. So that's a bit of a worry. Other than that, though, you can see ourselves 1.37, 7 big chances. That's a lot. I don't think we've had 7 big chances in the game before today. So that does show you we were carrying a threat. We had the goal disallowed for offside as well. So, you know, interesting to sort of see that. Here's the sort of player ratings. And unsurprisingly, Bilal El-Kanous is the SofaScore man of the match. You can see Victor Christensen, that's his best performance all season. And in fact, all the Danes had strong games. That's why we've got our very own Dane on the channel. LCFC Duck Andreas will be giving us his opinion on those players in just a second. It's funny here. Chris, I can't lie. I can't remember 31 shots. I don't know. I can remember quite a lot. That is something to sort of be said there. Here was the lineup. An unusual one. Casey McAteer came in. I think, you know, you mentioned there's something, Luke, I'm going to come to you in a second. Fass was dropped, but did come on. Got to say, and just saying we did concede the goal when Wout Fass was on the pitch. Hashtag just saying. Justin Baying in the team. Sumare, we're going to talk a lot about him and Ndidi. And of course, Bilal El-Kanous with a breakout performance, I would say that. Just quickly looking at the table, that is a huge result. Crystal Palace beat Ipswich, so that means currently we're 4 points clear of the relegation zone. Of course, Wolves still have to play, but you know that's we've definitely improved the situation, and that is a big result from us. So great for us this particular match. Right, I'm not going to go through this just yet. I'm actually going to go straight to this. So we're going to start looking at all of the players, but I think before looking at the players, we have to start with the main man. Want to get all the comments here. You just say, woo, 5 gifted subs from Locks. Thank you so much, Locks, for giving them away. I think we've got to after Ruud van Nistelrooy's first win. So I will come to you in a moment, Luke, but I'll start with you, Andreas. Talk to me about Ruud van Nistelrooy. What did you like about what he did with the team? What excites you? What do you think we need to improve? That's a lot to take on. Talk to me.
Oh, first off, what did he improve? Well, he immediately stopped us from conceding that many chances down the right. He made sure that was covered when the fullbacks were pushing up, and when the fullbacks went up the pitch, someone took their role and made sure we weren't leaking chances on the transition. Yes, they still had many shots, Worth noting, out of 31 shots, only 3 were considered big chances. Only 11 of the shots were blocked as well. We saw the willingness to get in front of the ball and make sure Mads Hermansen didn't have to do all the dirty work. And yeah, those are my big changes. We fought harder, we defended better, and yes, you can say all about the 31 shots. I think it's a misleading picture, to be honest, because there were not many times where I was shitting myself and the goal was close to being scored. I thought this was a great performance, a great first. If there is one thing I want to point out, our second phase of the game when we've won the ball back, a lot still to be done there, right? How do we build up? Do we go for the quick long ball? Do we kick it long? Do we try and have a few passes together before someone makes the run? Quite clearly, they haven't had time to address that yet, and understandably so. The defense was the most important part. But I saw determination, I saw grit, I saw the willingness to make sure they didn't score, and that's what Ruud has changed initially.
Absolutely. Before I come to you, Lux, I just want to give it to Luke, because Luke, you mentioned quite a few of the key things that we did there. I think you're right. Do you know what? Talk to me about what Ruud did in the second half, because I think the reason why he showed us today, why it's refreshing to actually have a proper Premier League quality manager in charge of this team is what? Tell me what he did in the second half, because he did many things. What did he do which was so good that the Orc would never have done?
Okay, first of all, he was proactive. So you would argue that we had a good first half. Yes, that we were facing a lot of shots, but the reality was that we had a clean sheet because we were compact at the back. But what he did notice was that he needed to swap the wingers over to create the correct chances. There was a few times McAteer just... I think personally he can cut it onto his right foot. So he put him on the left wing. It wasn't working. And then he made the subs at just before, I think it was 60 minutes. Okay, so he's proactive. So he got fresh legs in. He got Vardy off. We've got a lot of games coming up. He put pace up front with Daka, who I slated before he scored his goal. We'll come on to that. I will eat humble pie. And then also the only questionable decision maybe was he put Wout Faes on. But look, he was decent in the second half. Yes, we did concede a goal, but that wasn't Wout Faes' fault. So he is making changes early. He was the first to make changes. He was the first to make adjustments to his game. So he's not only making changes and substitutions, he's making tactical changes in game. So don't forget, 2 training sessions, still trying to figure out his best 11 in absolute perilous where we are at this part of the season. So, mate, I absolutely am all aboard this hype train right now. I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, just to very quickly add on to that, right? I think the biggest thing that describes the change you saw here is we discussed it. We said this is the first time we've seen a tactical battle between the managers and not a tactical humiliation. Like, we actually saw these managers try different things. Like, Betegi was trying to figure out how could he break us down, taking out Danny Ings, trying to play with a false 9. That didn't work well, in with Fulkrug instead. And we were seeing these small tweaks as well from Wout van Nistelrooy. It was fantastic seeing a manager actually winning a tactical battle as well. It's so refreshing watching that.
Absolutely. Just before I pass on to you, Lux, I will say that although I don't agree with it, I do believe he might have taken Vestergaard off on for fast, because Lopetegui at half-time made an interesting change. He took off Ings, who was their striker, and then he moved Kudus up to be a false 9. So he was trying to drag out the deep block to make some space in for the runners in behind. And so I think he wanted the faster player who could match that 1-for-1. Then, of course, Lopetegui recognized that, and then he put Antonio on, and then he put on Fulkrug as well. So it was a real kind of cat and mouse. And those are the changes that absolutely Cooper just gets baffled by. He can't do this. That was absolutely amazing to see someone who actually is paying attention to the game. Lux, what did you make of the Ruud van Nistelrooy?
Well, I broke my blue tinted glasses during the celebration.
Oh, no.
I've only got one. Don't worry though. I've got loads thanks to you, Anil. You know what though? You're right though about reacting in real time, mate. You know, with Cooper, it's like on Football Manager where you simulate the result. But then with Ruud, it's actually when you play the game and you make the changes as the game goes on. That's what it felt like. And with what Luke said about Wout Faes, I mean, yes, he nearly sabotaged us a little bit at the end. I don't know what he was thinking. He was trying to dribble out with it and he gave it away and we nearly conceded another. But I think when he did come on overall, he was quite good. I think it was for the reason that you said, obviously with Bowen and kind of playing then as a striker in a way. I think it was, after the first goal, in the first 2 minutes, we didn't have to wait long. It was vintage Vardy running through and we struggled a little bit, I think, but again, it was the game plan, I think. On the transition, we were really good. Daka, I know what moment Luke's on about where the ball just came into Daka when he should have scored because he was just one-on-one. He was in open space. Touch of a donkey. That good to see that's still there.
I definitely screamed it.
Yeah, but he made up for it. That's the main thing. He made up for it, and he took his finish so well. I think it was you and Neil who put the comment in the chat. Even Rude has Daka scoring. So yeah, look, it was nearly a perfect night. The clean sheet would have been the perfect night. It was a shame we conceded, but we don't really care, do we, lads? Let's be honest. We're absolutely buzzing. And I agree with Shrek's comment there, mate. If you bring Shrek's comment up, that was shut up. Talk sport,
I hate
100%.
There's a guy in TalkSport who is absolutely clueless. No clue who this is, a Dane, but the guy's been for a week now. Watch a clip of him flaming the fact that we sacked Steve Cooper. I wonder what he's saying now, man. What is that guy like? What a fool! Get him out of football, man. If he thinks it's a rash decision, they really need to watch more football. It's crazy.
Give the fucking knee, you idiot, and polish our Premier League trophy.
But you know what, Anil, though? I was listening to a West Ham fan earlier, and this West Ham fan did a stream with Ric Flair.
I saw that.
Yeah, and he was saying, like, us West Ham fans understand it because we're not in the bottom three, but we want Lopetegui sacked before it's too late. So they kind of understood where we were coming from. But yeah, Talk Sport, Sky Sports, the bloody Forest fans, other than Wolfie, they were all all so far up Cooper's arse. Hopefully now we can kick on and show why it was the right decision.
Cool. I'm going to start going through the players, but before I do so, I just want to start with this. So you can see that according to momentum, West Ham did have a lot of chances, but I think the big difference, which you wouldn't see under Cooper, is we were carrying a threat throughout the game, which is why we scored goals. So I think that's quite a big thing. Like, I think it was a deliberate thing, the way that we played. Like, we certainly did not have much control of this game, but I think you've only been at the team for 2 days, you've had 2 training sessions, and to improve the defensive shape so well and to still carry a threat. And that ultimately, have we scored more than 3 goals in the league game this season? I don't think so.
Not more than we scored against Southampton with Southampton, but that's it.
Yeah. But so, I think that was really, really impressive. So I'm going to start coming through the players, but I'm going to not actually start with Mads, even though he was absolutely amazing. I want to speak to someone who I believe has been getting a big up. So Andreas, as a Dane, yes, what do you make?
Finally, man. I invested in this just before he went out on loan. I love this guy to death, right? Came through the Copenhagen Academy. I'm a Copenhagen fan. My dad made me that when I was born. And I mean, going straight to Leicester, my 2 favorite club in the world. He embodies grit, determination, hard work, and never giving up. I mean, he has had his ups and downs. He's been too inconsistent, but today he showed what he can do. He was good defensively. He played against Jared Bowen, a quality Premier League winger, and kept him relatively quiet, while he could have been able to have maybe 2-3 assists. Got one in the end, but had a very good through ball to Vardy. Played the ball through to Buonanotte. That was barely given us offside as well. Like, he was all over the place. And after 96 minutes, he's still taking the sprint against, like, he's still making the runs. He's still giving everything. I love this kid with all my heart, man. He is absolutely brilliant, and he can go right to the very top.
Yeah, I've got to say I was super impressed by him. I remember when he was playing in the Champions League for your team, Copenhagen, and I think you played against Man City. I don't know if you played against Dortmund, but I remember he really stood out.
Yeah, we did play against Dortmund, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people were saying, like, have you seen this left back for Copenhagen? He looks like absolutely made for the Premier League. And I remember watching a few games thinking, what, that guy's, was he either 17 or 18 at the time? I was like,
I think he was, 18, very young.
I mean, he looked really good in that Champions League. So when we signed him, I was very excited. I think it's fair to say he didn't live up to the billing right away. But I would say that there's so many things that were good about today. I think that, again, working under a good coach, he was standing in the right positions. He was making the right calls. I really like what Brookline put here. He turned and carried the ball up the pitch. Before, he was always sort of trying to play it back and, having the wrong body shape. I think this allowed him to get a lot more forward. And I think I think really for me, this was the key, especially in that first half. Christensen and El Khanous partnering with him in the first half was really impressive. That looked like a really good partnership going forwards. And they're both our players, both permanent signings, and both here for a long time. Anyone else want to give Victor some flowers? Because he was really good. Luke?
Yeah, so, like, not only was he really good, bang on, good comment as well from Matty B. He did link up really well with El Khanous. They weren't getting in each other's way, which you've seen under the Orc. One thing that I've never really said, that weighted pass, I think it was to Daka. I can't remember who it was to because I was so excited. That was not a cross. It was a beautifully weighted pass. That I've never seen from him before. So it's a new feather in his cap. As also Andreas said, his tracking back was brilliant. Whole effort for the whole game. I couldn't be more stoked for him. I always liked him before under Rodgers. I thought there was a player in there. I have been critical of him and fairly so for this season. But today, mate, under that Dutch sexy leadership, he was one of the best players on the pitch.
100%. All right. Well, I want to go through all the players. So I'm going to talk about Mads Hermansen. Just want to bring up a top comment from Locks. The PE teacher has been replaced with the professor. Cooper to Rude. Absolutely agree with you. So Mads Hermansen, I mean, he won't get man of the match. That's obviously going to go to a certain Moroccan player, but he made some absolutely outlandish saves again. Early part of the game. I mean, look, West Ham had over 3xG. That is a lot. But he was brilliant. I think today his distribution was really good as well. There was only one where I remember him kicking it out into touch where he maybe could have played a bit better, but he was stepping up. He was passing it. I think he was giving us some composure playing it out. The saves were amazing. He was claiming the ball brilliantly. I mean, he was really, really good today. Look, we know how important he is. We've all said he's a contender for best goalkeeper in the league this season, mainly because Ederson's completely off form. Alisson has been injured. Got to say the Liverpool standing's been pretty good since he's been there. He has. But you're playing for a team where you're under pressure, and Mads keeps us in games. It's as simple as that. He did. You know what? It's funny. He probably did deserve the clean sheet, although I do think that as a team we didn't. We did give away a lot of chances overall, but absolutely brilliant and classic Mads. 9.5 out of 10. Only negative is shanking long kicks like he always does, but I don't think he shanked so many of them. But he did shank a few. But I'm going to keep it moving on. So do you know what? I want to pass this to you, Locks, if you don't mind. Because I thought this guy had low-key quite a good game. And, I told you before the match that I was scared that Connor Cody in a back four was not going to work. So talk to me. What did you make of Connor Cody?
I was very nervous at times when he had the ball at his feet, especially on the right side. I mean, him and JJ doing 1-2s. I was like, oh, God, here we go. But I think his experience showed, to be honest with you. I think he did really well, mate. He won a lot of headers. That is something that quite often you can't say about Vestergaard, even though he's like really tall. And it's things that Fast likes to win them, but he heads them in the bloody wrong direction. He heads them towards his own goal. So look, I think he was solid. I don't think he's the long-term option, and I think if we're able to buy a centre-back in January, that will be the that will be what we do, and that, a replacement will be in there. But I think for someone who's not played too much football in 2 years, really, in the Championship and in the Premier League, he did well coming in, mate, and he did his job well.
Goal line clearance as well, lest we forget that was brilliant from him. So I think he was absolutely brilliant. I can't really recall him doing anything too badly. As he's a Dane, another Danish player, I have to go to our resident Danish expert. So Andreas, talk to me about Yannick Vestergaard.
Yeah, he had a good game. His distribution was good. He's good at playing with the ball. I wholeheartedly believe he's a world-class defender when he has the ball. Let me make that very clear. Outside of when he has the ball, that's when he's a bit shaky, but we saw a good performance all around. He was tough to get past, threw his body in the line a few times, had a clearance not off the line, but a very good block in the first half to make sure we didn't go or it wasn't 1-1. So I thought all my three Danes had a good game today. Out of the three, he was the weakest, but that's simply due to the fact that the two others had, Mads Hermansen, a stand-up performance as always. But yeah, very solid game here from Vestergaard.
Yeah, I just want to bring this up just because someone asked like a really good thing. It was like, how can someone explain how he had 7 big chances yet an XG of only 1.35? Wild. And I guess it depends on exactly who does it, because this is another site that I like to use called Understat. And this one's a lot closer. You can see that 2.78 to 2.88. So look, all of these mathematical models, they're all a bit for nerds, aren't they? But I think it's fair to say that we did carry a threat, although West Ham carried one too. Okay, let's keep going. So, do you know what? I'll pass over to you, Luke, because I got to say, let's be honest with you. The entire how many goals today, Luke, came from our right-hand side?
0, good sir. I still think there's some healing to be done for this guy's confidence. I thought that he was very patchy. I thought there was moments where he was good. He made some good clearances, but there was also times where his man marking was a bit, questionable. So I do believe that there is more further work to be done under Ruud van Nistelrooy, who's only had 2 training sessions. But yes, I think as Andreas pointed out early, he did have support on the right-hand side, which is brilliant. Not a horrible game for JJ, but I did turn the ball over quite a bit. But I genuinely believe it's going to take a few weeks to get his confidence back. And I think some coaching can help him do that, because we know that JJ is a good player. He's not the same as he was pre-injury, but I don't believe that he's as bad as he's been this season.
No worries. Yeah, I would agree with that. Locks, if you got to drop out, don't worry. But whilst you're here, do you know what? I'll give you a better one. someone that I think you might want to talk about. Can you talk to me about Bouba Samare? Or is he Bouba Toure? You tell me.
Mate, I love him. I love him, mate. I mean, we all got excited after the Ipswich and Man United game, was it? Where he kind of came in and did a really good job. And he was okay after that. But tonight, mate, I thought him, and I know you're about to speak to him after this, but Ndidi, I think both of them were absolutely insane. I think they were quality. Yeah, mate, we look, it's not a surprise. We know Sumari. We know there's a player. We know there is. And the concerns all along, the easy accusation from people has been laziness. I still don't think it was laziness. I think it was maybe just the pace of the league. Yeah, he does. I still think it was the pace of English football. And obviously, the more minutes he plays, the more he adapts to that. You know, under Rodgers, he was in and out, and rightly so, by the way. I'm not saying that shouldn't have been the case. He put in some poor performances. But now, under Rude, I mean, look, we'll have to see what happens. Winks is going to be fit soon. What does Rude do? I think he sticks with this midfield. I don't think you can change this side on the weekend. As long as they're all ready and they're all, you know, fitness-wise and they're not too tired, I think you stick with this. And if Samari can get a good run of games, build the confidence, adapt to the Premier League, mate, I think he's going to be a hell of a player for us. And we'll be battling to keep him. For the last 2 years, we've been battling to get rid of him, and now I think we've been battling to keep him if he carries on like this. So
yeah, this below. I mean, I was going to say, do you know, whilst you were talking, I'm not going to lie, I literally said, how long has he got left on this contract? I just Googled it. So he's got 2 years left, which is interesting because for now, finally, it's taken a very long time, we've got to say, but this was the player. You know, even if he just plays at quote unquote justice standard every week, that is a very good player. That's kind of what I was expecting him to get to. So he's very impressive.
Was it you and Neil that told me about the data?
Yes.
Or the data analysts thought this guy was the next big thing. And when Leicester signed him, all the big clubs were like, "Oh my god, that is a hell of a signing." And they can't all be wrong. All these big boy analysts around Europe. So, you know, like I just said, we know there's a player there. It's about confidence. It's about consistency. If he can keep it going, mate, he'll be a big part of why we stay up. You know,
I mean, sometimes those data mistakes happen. Another one was Naby Keita from Liverpool. Believe it or not, of all the players Liverpool have ever signed, Naby Keita was the one that was supposed to be the highest in all data volumes, and he turned out to be terrible. There you go. And they, in fact, almost passed on Mo Salah for Julian Brand. So that was a fortunate accident. That they couldn't get him.
Right, I'm off, boys. Thank you so much. Great win
today. Thank you so much.
See you all tomorrow night, Fox's Den. Cheers, all. See you soon.
Cheers, mate.
Okay. Do you know what? I'll take Ndidi, as Locks did briefly mention him. So Wilf Ndidi, I think overall, I think he was a monster defensively. So I think he was very impressive there. I think first half, he wasn't particularly good on the ball. But I think even in the second half, I think he was quite good on the ball and he was making some good passes. We put it out to the panel. Locke said there that he felt that like Ndidi and Samari should be the midfield two going forward. I think, Luke, you might be against that. I mean, obviously, Winks is still to come back. So let's imagine we've got all the options available. You can pick Winks, Sumare, Ndidi, Skip. Who's your midfield two and why?
Okay, so there's merit in both, and I think it will be a tactical answer and depending on who we're playing. So there's merit in Wilfred Ndidi, as you just called out, rightfully so. In the second half, he was everywhere. He defended back to his best, and where a lot of Leicester fans think that is his best position in the double pivot as a deep lying six that protects the back line. Although my argument is, and again, he had a good game in the second half. I will say that if it were up to me on paper with the way Samari is playing, it would be Samari and Winks as your double pivot. Samari, very physical, getting up the pitch, very good ball distribution tonight. He would be my, if I had to have a man of the match, he would be my second shout, Samari. But I would have Samari and Winks. I just think that those two together would be excellent. But there's a fair shout as well for having rotation with Skip and Ndidi.
Yeah, I mean, look at these defensive stats. These are mental. 9 tackles in one game, 11 clearances, 4 out of 5 aerial duels won, 11 out of 14 ground duels won. Like these are basically in the top 1% in the Premier League for defensive stats. So that's something about him that is, interesting to look at. I wonder if there's any data on the air. But equally, you look at Samare, it's funny, it doesn't look so good, but the passing accuracy was there. Anyway, that was interesting to hear that. Let's move on. I think both the double pivot were very good. So do you know what? Yeah, because I've given you someone who had a really good game, I've got to balance it out with maybe someone who was a bit surprisingly off. So, Andreas, talk to me about Facundo Buonanotte, because dare I say it, was he our worst player?
Close enough. I think this was a game where we saw what Buonanotte looks like when he isn't on it, right? We saw still the ideas were there, but the execution was lacking in all departments. I think a lot of this came down to the fact that I guess there was a lot of uncertainty about our lineup, but you could definitely nail down Buonanotte was starting. So I noticed a lot. They were very much trigger pressing him. They pretty much had a man mark. So every time he had the ball, he had to play well if he wanted to get a turn off or maybe try and play the ball. And then when he managed to get the turn off and beat his man, the final pass was often lacking. But I thought he was nothing impressive this game. But what I will say, he was still running even just before he got subbed out. He lost the ball. Well, what did he do? He didn't just sit there and moan. He sprinted and bought us maybe 20, 30 more seconds on the clock when we were 3-0 up by pressing and making sure they couldn't play the ball up the field and try and equalize, or not equalize, but, get a reduction on the late consolation. So he was working hard all throughout the game, and that's what I really want these players to do. When you're not in your A game, at the very least, leave everything out there, and he did that today.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think it was a bit surprising. He did seem a bit off it, but he was so close to that final pass a few times, so he could easily have been really good. I think he still put in a decent shift. It was notable that his position changed. So he started as the 10, but a big change that Ruud made is in the second half, he put Bilal in as the 10 and he moved Facundo out to the right-hand side. And I think that improved Bilal, who we're going to get to in a moment. But maybe that took a little bit away from Buonanotte. But look, you've got to say, no goal from the right-hand side. That's a collector's item in the Leicester City fans' book this season. And he still looked okay. And look, not every player is always going to have an amazing game. And I still think his impact for Facundo Buonanotte since coming to the team on loan has been absolutely outstanding. But do you know what, Luke? Because I've given you some crap, I'm going to give you one that I'm sure you did one. So can you talk to me just before, just to even back it up, if it wasn't obvious enough? Let's look at some of these stats. So 3 key passes, 3 big chances created, 1 goal, 1 assist, interceptions, tackles, even won some aerial duels. Maybe you could say the passing accuracy could be better, but that's because he dares to try and make big chances. It was an absolute breakout performance from, as Lucas says here, the Moroccan De Bruyne. How good was Bilal El Khanous?
Superb. Made defensive clearing tackles in the first half. He set the goal up with a beautifully weighted pass to Vardy. He was there to have clinical finish under pressure for his goal. He was sensational today in all departments. There is a gem in there. There really, really is. And this was his game to do it and to cement his spot in the starting 11. I am really, really high on this kid. We spent a lot on him. We want to see return on investment and something for the future, and we've got it, mate. But he was outstanding today. He was my man of the match, and I am really, really excited. He's got confidence now in that game. He's going to be developing under Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think the trajectory is nowhere but up for him from now on.
Agreed. Just want to say to Locks, if he's still watching, because we're going to be selling the blue tinted glasses in the merch store at some point. Turtlenecks for Ruud van Nistelrooy, but the Moroccan fez for Bilal. I will wear that on the stream. That's a good one. I'll be thinking about that. We got to give some more love to Khanous, I think. We've waited for a Maddison replacement and we got something else, the birth of an absolute monster. I think so many people are talking about something that I think goes underrated, which was his work rate. His tracking back was absolutely insane. I think the first action in the game, actually, that he had was he comes rushing back and he went really in full-blooded into a physical challenge. West Ham are a physical team, wins the ball back. I remember him going for like a sliding challenge in the penalty box. He was around all over the place. And I also think we've got to give him a lot of credit that he played multiple positions, right? So he's tracking back sometimes in the left-back role. He gets good as the kind of left-hand side drifting inside. He was good in number the 10 position. He's going to be the Moroccan McGinn, but you know what? I think he's a lot more mobile than McGinn. That's the one problem I have with John McGinn, actually. I think he's a good player, but I think he sometimes can get caught out of position. Andreas, you talk to me about him. We've got it because this was super exciting because this guy is not on loan. This guy's a permanent signing. This
was a brilliant performance. The work rate, which I really want to see today, was 10 out of 10. Playing left back for minutes when Christiansen was pushing high up the field, trying to get the cross in, making sure the position was covered. Playing the left wing, playing the cam as well. Like the fact that he can play multiple roles in attack and just fluidly switch between them. he was on top today. This proved why we signed him. Getting a goal on top. I know even back in the Belgian league, it wasn't often he would chip in with the goal. So it felt like a very deserved reward for what was a 10 out of 10 performance from him. Absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, I think you've been a bit harsher in the Belgian league. I was looking at his highlights. I mean, he looked
No,
absolutely.
he was brilliant in the Belgian league, but
Yeah.
he often didn't chip in with the goals. Very often it was assist. He was mainly touted as the big playmaker there, right? And he was a good playmaker today. And getting a goal on top of that, really just the cherry on top. Brilliant performance.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the next player we fall in love with because he's ours. I think if Buonanotte signed, he would obviously get that, but absolutely brilliant. And yes, the Moroccan fan base will be absolutely loving this one, but why not? I mean, they've wanted him. And, I think fair play, I forget who it is, but we do have like a Moroccan fan who's in the blue tinted family. And he often says that like he just feels that he was tired of seeing a washed Leicester team wasting Bilal, and it was so sad, and he felt like he was going backwards playing for this team. But now he's got a proper coach. I think we're going to see something a lot more. So I'm going to take the next one. It is, of course, the legend, the GOAT, Jamie Vardy. And well, what can you say? That finish was vintage Jamie Vardy. They thought he was offside. He was never offside. What a brilliant composed finish. Maybe he was so composed because he felt he was offside, but it was a brilliant tuck away. And he could have scored again just afterwards, couldn't he? And then I think there was a bit in the second half where he could have played an assist through. But once again, Vardy was really good. I think, Luke, you mentioned to me at halftime, he was dropping in and linking up the play pretty well. So he was involved as a team player. I think he was leading the press really well as well. So I think Vardy was really good. I do also think it was actually a good idea for Ruud to sub him when he did. The games are coming thick and fast. I think that was the right idea. But once again, how many goals has Vardy got now? 5, 6? I mean, it's so impressive that it just shows you that he is literally the definition of like, form is temporary, class is permanent. Jamie Vardy's just got pure class. And he shows he doesn't even need pace. He just knows how to do it. And yeah, it's funny, but Vardy's first real claim to fame was, linked to Ruud, and it's poetic justice that he's now a manager. And I was saying to the boys that 12 in a row, you heard it here first, Vardy's now 11 to go. Surely with him and Ruud working together, either him or Daka's going to get that record because Daka scored as well. So before we come to the subs, I think another player that deserves a lot of credit. So, I'll go to you, Andreas, for this one. This guy, I think, had a very underrated game. Talk to me about Casey McAteer.
Yeah, I think this was I don't want to say a statement game for him because he was still missing the last few percentiles to getting the ball in the net or getting the few assists. Did manage to pick up one, very well deserved. I thought he's working hard, even dropping down the defense again, like Knus when needed, and then has the pace, willingness to run up the field. I thought he was 80-90% there to a brilliant performance. Just needed that last bit of precision in the final third. The shot to go in when he was 1-on-1. He had 2 1-on-1s. I do say one of them was very, very tough to score from, where he was being pressed quite a lot. But could have had more assists, could have had a few more goals. But I do want to say he's 90% there to delivering a Premier League quality performance. And I will say maybe today was one. It just wasn't a top Premier League performance because he showed a lot of good things today. Versatility, playing on both wings. That's what we need as well when we had these sort of injuries. He's a very useful squad player for us, and I do hope that this guy coming through our own academy can someday take up a bigger role. And I see the bright sparks in him.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I would say for him as well, he definitely he should have scored tonight. And I think he did get an assist though, didn't he?
He did get an assist in the Knus goal,
which is good. But you're right. I think if he was a bit sharper, he could have done a lot more even than he did. What I will say though, I think this is really good. Brian absolutely summed up. He has the best work rate. I can tell you, if you were coaching, I would love to work with a player like Casey McAteer. I've said this before. The reason why is because you can tell he listens to the coach's instructions and he does what he's asked to do and he does it well and he doesn't complain. And so he's a good system player. Like, it might sound crazy, obviously maybe not in the Premier League, but if you had sort of 11 players like Casey McAteer, if you were playing system football, the system would actually work quite well because they would all do what they're supposed to do. Of course, quality still matters, but if you can generate cutbacks and things like that. What I wanted to ask you, both of you, though, is, I think there's still a question about the quality of Casey McAteer. Is it a case that if he gets given enough time, that quality will come? Or is he just lacking that quality? Do you know what I mean? Like some players, and I think Bilal El Knus is a good example of it, you can just tell that the quality is there. It's only a matter of time before it's going to come out. What we're seeing in Casey McAteer, is this as good as he can be? or can he go up a level? And maybe a player I could liken him to is Harvey Barnes. When he first broke into the team, there were a lot of people that thought Harvey Barnes is a sort of player that will at most score 4 goals a season. And then the other season where he scored 15 and we still got relegated. So what do you think about that? I'll start with you, Luke. What is Casey McAteer's upper potential?
So bang on, you stole my thunder, mate. I was going to say to you that he is a system player. His work rate, yes, it was exceptional, and he could have been more clinical, but he hasn't had much game time. Do I think he's a Premier League standard player right now? No, but don't forget, everyone, that he kept Fatawa on the bench last season for a reason. He was playing and performing well, granted, in the league below. I do think that his ceiling, V1 put a good comment earlier, his peak squad player for an upper mid-table team.
Yeah.
Maybe, but mate, I definitely think his ceiling's higher, and I think he does need a run of games. Would I have him start over Mavididi? No, but it is helping his development. I think that he was going to create a lot of good chances. It's just a shame he was a clinical. So yeah, mate, I think for now, I would use him as a rotational squad option. I would bring him on, 20, 30 minutes. I wouldn't start him. But, mate, I thought he was decent today. I just think that he needs to get more clinical with his finishing.
And if there's anyone who can help you get more clinical, well, maybe it's one of the most prolific scorers in the Premier League history, right? Ruud van Nistelrooy. If there's anyone who can fulfill this potential in the department he's lacking right now, it should be him. And I think there's also something to say about just a bit more over a year ago, he's playing League One, I think, with AFC Wimbledon, right, out on loan. So it is, I don't want to say a quick step up, but he hasn't had many minutes in the Premier League this season. He needs that time to not just get his match sharpened up, because he needs to build that as well, but also just settle in the Premier League. There is this nervous bubble where you may be a bit too naive sometimes, and it's a bit up and down in performance, like we saw when Christiansen came into the Premier League initially, right? You could see the bright sparks, but he was missing the final output. I think he, as I saw someone mention, Jed, give him a run of games, and I am sure he will look more confident. He'll make more of the correct decisions, and hopefully that sharpness will be there as well, because I'm sure he has a ceiling to be a good Premier League player. I'm not going to say he's going to be a Premier League star, but I think he has the potential to be a good player for us, to be honest, and a good Premier League player.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is interesting. I think this is a fair comment that someone thinks that McAteer's championship at best. Let's be honest, he's limited. That is where I was leaning to earlier in the season. But like I say, I see there's a lot to like about him, so I wouldn't judge him just yet. Let's wait and see. We've just played one game, but we've got another 7 games left this month, and there's only, 28 days left. So my prediction is you're going to see a lot more Casey McAteer. And I think so far, if he plays like that, I mean, even though you could say that he wasted opportunities, ultimately, there was a reason that we ended up on the winning team today. Okay, we're going to go through each of the subs one by one, because I think they all made an impact in one way or another. So let's talk about the one that made us grimace. And I think this one will probably get the most comments. So let you have him, Luke. Why do you think we brought him on? And what did you think of Wout Faes when he did come on?
Obviously, to deal with the changes they made with the false nine and the pace, that I could see why. And we've actually, granted, Man United were up comfortably when they played us, but remember they subbed on Johnny Evans at United. He clearly favours keeping fresh legs at the back, particularly of how many shots that we were facing. So it did scare me. There was one chance where he cleared the ball out from the back and he played a beautiful ball. I believe it was to Mavididi, which linked up and started up a counter. So I do think that he didn't have a bad game. He's pissed me off all season. He still wouldn't be starting for me, because, a whole game for him could be calamitous, and he goes walkabout at least once in a game with his concentration. But, mate, I've got nothing I can say negative about him for the time that he was on. So I'm not going to bash him, but I still want to shear that fucking wig off his head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, because there was definitely one point where he made a really bad sort of pass and almost put us into trouble, but he did make some recovery things. But like I said, I think he might have been brought on to deal with the false nine situation. I think it was a bit harsh for Yannick to be removed. I think Yannick was playing good. But this is fair. Bowen was running Vestergaard into the corners. You can't keep Yannick on if that's going to happen. Yeah, because he's going to, with his lack of pace, be kind of pulled out of positions. That's a good one from Conches. Well on there to say that. Okay. Andreas, you can talk to me about this guy, the player that Luke lovingly refers to as Bobby the Donkey Reed. But what did you make of him? Because he was a bit unlucky to have a goal ruled out. What did you make of Bobby the Donkey Reed?
I thought he was all right. I thought he did this game showed what I expected when we bought him, right? We are buying a Premier League quality player. He's not anyone who will set the world alight. He'll be able to come on for the last 20 minutes, work right, and maybe get a goal here or there. This is exactly what we brought him for, right? Sub him on, get a few decent passes. You want to foul high up the pitch as well later on, just to buy some more time. He was willing to press. I thought he did absolutely nothing wrong. He was he was what I expected when we signed him. This was by far his best performance. I don't want to be sitting here saying that it was a level above anything that I imagined from him. This is what I did imagine from him. He just hasn't showed anywhere near this level so far this season. And if this is a player we can sub on with 20, 30 minutes to go to run some meters, maybe get a goal here or there, gain some fouls and play some decent balls, that's exactly what we want. And I mean, that is what I expected from Cordova-Reid, and he showed what I expected from him today. Very decent appearance.
See, I think this is the key thing. Great comment from Matty B. I felt all the subs were given clear instructions tonight and executed well. That is honestly what I thought. I have to say, there have been many players in the team. Look, I think Victor Christensen, another one, James Justin, where it's unsurprising that a manager that actually has a clear system and good idea and instructions, and all of a sudden they actually look like good Premier League players, that the fees that were paid for them look good. So yeah, I think Bobby Reid actually look way more like the player that I've seen at Fulham, where I think he was making good runs, was actually causing problems, actually helping out. As said here, his ball into the Daka was sublime. It was just unfortunately that Daka took a rather bad touch.
Yeah.
But you know what? Speaking of Patson Daka, I think a lot of us have tuned in just for this alone. So Luke, I have to hand it to you. What did you make of Patson Daka?
So that ball from Cordova-Reid was sublime, and I will eat humble pie because I do call him Bobby D. Donkey Cordova-Reid. Daka is the next donkey, but do you know what? His pace was electric tonight. He was the perfect time to be subbed on. I will apologize. I'm still not going to board his Zambian hype train, but he put the fucking laces through that goal, mate. Crack the top of the net, top bins, in you come, bend the knee, West Ham, too easy. Sorry, mate. But he look, mate, if he can work on his clinical shooting and get better under Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's a brilliant squad option to have. And if we were to move him out of Canada was to come good, at least we can see a return in value for what we paid for him, because I believe he was bought in that same window as Samari. We were going for it back down in the transfer window. So to get a return of both those players that they can hit from is so massively important to our squad. We cannot let people keep going away on a free, which we've seen in the past. So the question is, and I'll come to you with this, Andreas, would you start Daka over Vardy next week and then rotate them like we did see with Kelechi and Vardy last season, where you had your starters and finishes for, 60, 30 minutes? Because we're going to need to with the run of games coming up.
No, I don't think so. I thought Daka was great today. I thought he did exactly what I wanted him to. I thought the substitution was perfect. I want to see Vardy start as long as he's not injured. I think he's simply just too good to ignore in that spot. But Daka offers some things, and I think Ruud got the best out of him today. Yes, he has an absolute donkey's first touch, and he's not precise with his finishing. And what I love about his goal today is what he didn't try to do what Vardy does and pick a spot that the keeper can get to. He smashes it home. He runs the yards. He has the pace and the willingness to press. I thought he was brilliant in the press, running and running and running for those 30 minutes, where if we had kept Vardy on, Vardy would have been too tired. He's 38 years old. You can only make a player run for that long. So I thought it's a brilliant substitution. This is how we should use Daka. And I think he'll chip in with more goals as the season progresses, because this high press, it will get goals like it did today. And as long as he just makes sure to hit the goal frame when he hammers it home, then the goals will come. I like Patson Daka. I think Ruud can get the best out of him, but he doesn't need to start.
Yeah, do you know what? I'll be interesting to see what happens with him, because, sometimes you get managers that think that they can fix a player. And I'd actually be the sort of coach, I wouldn't mind working with Patson Daka, because surely the way I liked it, if you look at Wilfred Ndidi, his touch is still not as good as other players, like let's say Harry Winks or Boubakary Samari. But if you compare Wilfred Ndidi's touch these days to what it was when he first played for Leicester, it is so much better, right? He's so much better at playing under pressure. Like Patson Daka, honestly, they just need to be kicking long balls at him and getting him to control it first touch. He needs to do that for 2 hours a day. I know it sounds ridiculous. What Maradona used to do, kick the ball up 60 meters in the air and try and control it first time. He's just got to practice that over and over. And I think if he did that, he could improve his game. But yeah, his positioning, I think there's a lot of sort of things to be said there. Right. I'm going to take one myself, actually. The last one, because I think there's going to be a lot of, because Jordan I wasn't really on for long enough. But this is someone who there's a lot of comments about, because I think a lot of our eyebrows are raised about this man not being in the starting lineup. But then obviously Kanous has come in for him and done really well. I guess Casey McAteer in front of him was different, but Steffi Mavididi. So really interesting. I'm sure we'll get your comments in. So I'm going to bring some comments up at the moment. Mavididi is off the boil at the moment. After today's performance, I would start McAteer at the weekend. Tracks back better too. And another comment from Akif. Yeah, the one thing I hate about Steffi is he never seems to have the legs to chase the opposition with the ball. I think it was one of the reasons why Ruud van Nistelrooy dropped him. And there was a bit near the end of the game, even though he had fresh legs, we were watching the game together. And Andreas, you were shouting at the screen. You were like, run back, Steffi, run back, Steffi. You've got the fresh legs. What are you doing? Get back. And you were right. It was like a bit unforgivable that someone who'd just come on wasn't making the effort to get back. And so that's what some of the comments go. Yeah, Didi was a bit lazy to defend. His legs need work tracking back is so poor these days, but always incredible taking people on. The funny thing is, though, is that, Mavididi did work hard last season. Like, absolutely. Like Enzo got that a bit out of him. So, look, I will see to him, I can see why he's been dropped, basically. I think there is something to be said for that. Maybe is it his lack of confidence? I mean, obviously, playing under Cooper isn't going to help someone. But I'll tell you what, I'll ask the rest of the panel. So, Luke, why don't you talk to me? What do you think about Steffi? Do you think it's right that he's not starting? What do you think is up with him?
So, look, I agree, but everyone in the comments, they are right to call out, and we did mention his tracking back. But last season, I don't think that was an issue. I think it was actually one of his strengths. Both him and Fatah used to track back and support our back three. But yes, he was not very, very lethargic when we're screaming at him for not tracking. Whereas Christensen, who's been on the whole game, is running his socks off to get back. So, but going forward, though, he's just so much better at taking his man on than anyone else that we have available. Even arguably even Fatawu, mate. But that's a big call. I'm not saying I believe that, but he's on par. They're both absolutely brilliant. He had one moment we had excellent step overs. I think he squared a ball, and in my opinion, nearly won a penalty. But I would start him next game, okay, because I do think that he's more clinical, and I think he can take his man on better than McAteer. But if he continues to not track back like he displayed today, he'd be getting hauled off and McAteer's getting a run. That's what I'd be doing if I was Ruud van Nistelrooy.
I agree. I think we saw today, right, why Mavididi's a Premier League quality player. He's very good at taking players on, but it's inexcusable when you come in at the 60th minute and your team has been pressing the whole game and tracking back, that you don't follow along with that. I thought as well, something you commented on earlier, Neil, right? The combination between El Kanouche and Christensen really got the best out of Christensen. And when Mavididi came on, what happened when Christensen made the overlaps? He would never get the ball. And I'm not saying Christensen should get the ball every time, but every single time it happened this game, he didn't get the ball because Mavididi felt like he wanted to prove why he's a Premier League quality player, and that's by taking men on. But he needs to also look up, pass the ball sometimes because Christensen is there to help him. And I remember the one time I flamed him for not tracking back, that was because he ended up wasting too much time. Christensen was on the overlap and didn't get the ball. And when Mavididi lost the ball, well, who was the first to track back between those two? It was Christensen. And yeah, I think Mavididi should stay on the bench until he learns how to track back, or he knows how to, but is willing to do it, and remembers to play the ball, because he has Premier League quality for sure. I love Mavididi, but I mean, those mistakes or those, the laziness that is, I don't want to say lazy because that's such a strong word, but to not do that, it's a bit inexcusable to me.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Look, I think I'll end it with this. I think actually this particular guy is going to get my comments, not necessarily for this comment, but he's made some great comments today from Matty B again. Ruud van Nistelrooy was trying to shore up the fullbacks, hence El Kanouche and McAteer starting. It worked. 100% agree. That was it in a nutshell. That is why I think we got the win. Yes, we did concede. Actually, Locke just put that apparently West Ham have never had as many shots in the game as that. But at the same time, look, we had a lot of chances ourselves and could have scored goals. So I think, look, again, what did we say? A competent manager would take one look at this setup and he would try to come up with a solution, any solution. And he figured out that solution in game one. So I think with that, guys and girls, we'll end it there. It's ended up with a brilliant debut victory for Ruud van Nistelrooy. The Ruud era has begun at the King Power, and it's begun with a win. 3-1 to the Foxes, Leicester City. 4 points between us and the relegation zone. Thank you so much. Please like the stream. Subscribe if you haven't already to Luton's classes. And also follow the rest of the guys. Luke at LCFC Down Under, Leicester City Down Under. Otherwise, thank you so much. Thank you, Luke, for joining. I know it's 6 a.m. where you are, 7 a.m. Andreas, thank you so much for being our Danish football expert. It looks like we're going to need a lot more of you.
Yeah, no worries. I'm happy to be here.
With the Danes have got in the team. And thank you for listening. Thank you so much to Locks for running the match day live stream as well. How good does that feel, ladies and gentlemen? Leicester City are back. We've got a top manager. I'm feeling excited. We have got Brighton coming up next. That's going to be a tough game, but that was good. We really needed that. Thank you, everyone. Take care and see you tomorrow for Foxes Den here on Blue Tinted Glasses. Goodbye. Andreas